When you are a champion, you are expected to take on all comers and be prepared to fight and put your belt on the line against anybody who's willing to step up and say, I can beat you, and you having not fought me is a challenge to you as the champion. It's a challenge to your existence as the champion. Tyron Woodley had barely got the UFC welterweight title wrapped around his waist and took it from a champion who had defended it on a couple of occasions against very tough opposition and never complained about it once. And Woodley was already starting to duck and weave opponents. Everyone knows Stephen Wonderboy Thompson defeated Rory McDonald, took out Johnny Hendricks, and is in line for the title. He should be getting the next shot at the UFC title. And yet, when he openly put that on the line for Tyron Woodley, Woodley ducked him. Plain and simple. Said, I want to fight George St. Pierre or I want to fight Nick Diaz. Two fighters that are coming off the couch. George St. Pierre said he wants to come back and fight, but he's been retired into the game for a while. Nick Diaz coming off suspension. That's pathetic. Woodley wanted, big money fights. You know what? If you feel you can't sell fights on your own, maybe you need to do something, to improve what you're bringing to the table. Nonetheless, it should be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson taking on Tyron Woodley. Nick Diaz needs a fight or two. He hasn't beaten anybody since BJ Penn. George St. Pierre's been on the shelf forever. It seems Woodley needs to step up and fight Thompson. And if he doesn't, that's a travesty. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 92, which will take place on August 6th from Salt Lake City, Utah, featuring Yair Rodriguez taking Alex Caceres in a featherweight main event. Very much looking forward to that fight. I'll be giving my 6 main card predictions on this episode of the show. All 6 of my preliminary breakdowns will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Please check that out. I'm coming off a 7-3 UFC 201 event. I started the show 7-0. Actually, should have been 8-0 because I felt Michael Graves got robbed and lost 3 consecutive bouts to end the night in very disappointing fashion, very upsetting fashion. But nonetheless, that's the way the fight game goes, and we're seeing a lot of title changes. And some people are starting to point out title changes and upsets, especially in the main event. A lot of people are starting to point out correlations maybe between USADA's impact and fighters that have been dominant for quite a while and has a lot of success, suddenly now not being as nearly as effective. I don't know if it's just maybe a coincidence, but hey, there could be something there. The bet packs, you can certainly consider buying the bet pack for this event, $12. You get a full breakdown of everything available that I have to offer, both fantasy and betting, every fight. I'll give you solid, more manageable picks that will produce at a lower level with lower risk, and I'll give you some big-time picks and parlays that will produce high level but obviously come with greater risk. Also, you can get in on the subscription for the next 2 months. I haven't set the price yet. You'll save upwards to probably $18 to $20 depending on what I set it at. Make sure you check the bet shop out for that. And without further ado, let's get to our first main card prediction. We open the evening's festivities in the UFC Women's Strawweight divisions. The 8th-ranked Maryna, Iron Lady Moroz, with a 7-1 record, takes on UFC newcomer Danielle Taylor with an identical record of 7 wins and 1 defeat. Now, Taylor's replacing Justine Kish on just over 1 week's notice, and she's coming off a TKO victory over the fighter that gave her only career loss. So, she's got some momentum coming into this, but certainly a tough situation for the UFC debutante. For Moroz, she's coming off a win over Christina Stanciu, which was the first fight she had after suffering her first career loss, which came to Velo Letourneau, so she's also had some retribution of late as well. Physically, Moroz is 7 inches taller than her opponent. Taylor is only 5 feet tall, so she's very small for the division, despite this being 115 pounds. A lot of people talk about her going to atomweight at 105 being more suitable, but obviously the UFC doesn't have that, and take the opportunity we can get it. Moroz is actually 2 years younger as well. Now, for the Ukrainian-born fighter, she's a master of sport in both boxing and kickboxing, though she has just 1 win by knockout, compared to 5 wins by submission, which is pretty darn impressive. She is 1-1 on the scorecards. With Taylor, she comes from a striking background, 3 wins by knockout, 1 submission win, 3 decision victories, and 1 loss, 1 KO loss on her record, as I already mentioned. She is the former King of the Cage champion in this division. Now, for Taylor, she has, as far as competition's concerned, she has a win over Jillian Leibarger, which is the twin sister of Jocelyn Leibarger, but Jillian not nearly as successful, has walked away from MMA 0-3, so not nearly that big of a win. Decent regional wins, but nothing overwhelming as far as that is concerned, but kind of what you'd expect from a female strawweight looking to make the big show, make her jump. Comes from a Muay Thai background, likes to sit on the outside, looks for openings, and then moves in, tries to get inside, uses her speed and feints to get in range to make up for that distance, that length she doesn't have in her corner, and she'll try to catch her opponent with counters as they look to try and close the distance. Although with Moroz, don't expect to see a lot of that because obviously with such a height and reach, what should be a reach advantage as well, that's going to favor her significantly. Now Taylor likes to stay low in her stance. Even short, it makes her even shorter than she normally is, and she will come to the top of the big right hand, and it can be effective, but again, when you're facing these higher level fighters who just have more skills, it's really a questionable strategy. When she got knocked out, she walked into a short overhand right. It was the 4th round where she lost her title. Ultimately, she regained it, but still, it was a very brutal. It was a KO. It wasn't just a TKO. She was knocked unconscious. She will shoot for the odd takedown. Talked about already being lower against her opponent's hips, which makes it easier. She's very physically strong, and there's no denying that. She has experience in longer fights, going 5 rounds twice, 4 rounds once. She has 3 3-round decisions as well. But the short notice is still difficult, especially taking on the easily the most talented fighter you faced in your career. For Moroz, she comes from a striking background, but as I said, she's shown affinities for submissions. She throws a nice left jab, a 1-2, and finish with a body kick. Lots of body kicks we'll see mixed in from Moroz here. She hurt Valor Letourneau with a right hand. Good multi-punch combinations, works in and out before her opponent can counter, which will be very effective against a shorter reacher, shorter puncher. She was getting countered when she fought Letourneau when she moved in and knocked down as well with the right hand. When she faced Stanshu, who's not exactly a tall fighter either, Stanshu had some success early on getting in and bullying her and pushing her back, but Moroz did a nice job of staying calm, defending, and eventually capitalizing on the position and getting into a better position. If the fight does go to the ground and Danielle Taylor does jump on top, look for Maryna to be very aggressive off her back. She really does quite well with her arm bars, and she's willing to attack at any point. She's got some decent dexterity in her hips and will threaten. If Maryna looks for takedowns, probably be from the clinch, strip takedowns. She's very quick at moving to the back. She's good at holding position. She'll attack with subs, land good ground and pound. Overall, the short notice for Taylor is going to be very difficult for her to overcome, as is the step up in competition. I think the length issues will be magnified against better, more talented competition that she's used to facing on the regional scene. Moroz, she fights long, and she's going to be hard to hit for Taylor, and if Taylor pushes forward, look for those counter strikes and counter takedown attempts from her opponent. I think Moroz outworks her on the outside. Taylor gets desperate to close distance, makes mistakes. Moroz eventually catches her on the ground, and my prediction is Maryna Moroz to defeat Danielle Taylor by submission. The second fight on the main card also features a new UFC fighter, as Joseph Capao Gigliotti, I believe I'm butchering that, undefeated at 7-0, makes his debut against Hot Sauce Strikeforce veteran Trevor Smith with a current record of 13 wins and 6 defeats. Now, Smith has alternated wins and losses since coming to the UFC over his 6 fights inside the octagon. He is coming off a win over Dan Miller, so for following the pattern, he should be due for a loss here. He's also coming off a 13-month layoff, which is fairly considerable for him. For Gigliotti, this is his debut. He fought just 4 months ago. He's training under Power MMA. So he's got some good camp to fall back on there, and he has some experience fighting both for RFA and a 1-fight stint in the World Series of Fighting. Physically at 6'3", Smith is 4 inches taller than his opponent, will have a marked 6-inch reach advantage, but he's also 12 years older. But he does have a sizable experience advantage with 12 more pro fights. For Gigliotti, 3 wins by knockout, 4 submission wins, 4 first-round finishes on his record, finishing all 7 of his opponents. Smith is 1-4 in fights ended by knockout, so that's a red flag right there. 9-1 in fights ended by submission, so you see where his strength is, and 3-1 on the scorecards. Now, Gigliotti, he comes from a high school wrestling background. As I said, he's training with Power MMA alongside guys like Ryan Bader, CB Dalloway, Aaron Simpson. Lots of good MMA wrestlers to help build his craft around. Now, his striking is more power over technical ability. He throws quick power punches. Some people, and I saw some of the reports comparing him to kind of a Hector Lombard style of striking. He has to close distance to land strikes, and in the process, he has been clipped and hurt in a couple of fights, but obviously he's been able to push through that. When he fought Poppy, one of the last guys, I think it was his last fight outside of the UFC, he landed a massive stiff left hand to put him down, and then jumped on the guillotine to eventually finish him for the submission. He has a good wrestling game, decent submission, hard squeeze. Once he gets on that neck like he did against Poppy, he was able to finish that fight up. And he will look for submissions right away, and that can cost him position if he's not able to establish control before he starts looking to put his opponent away. Now, his last 3 opponents, 18-14 overall record. He did face one opponent who's 0-2, and he had another opponent who had built a pretty good record for themselves, and then has just 1 win in their last 7 fights. So, regional level opposition. obviously, so this is a step up in competition for him as well. Now, looking at Trevor Smith, he's a very good grappler, very physically strong, offers good submissions, former NJCAA wrestler, nice level changes. He'll look for the head and arm triangle once he gets on top, able to counter out of submission attempts. Like if fighters try and grapple with him, if he can defend that submission, look for him to move to a better position and hold it very well. When he fought Dan Miller, he controlled him on the mat very effectively, broke him down with punches and just smothering top position control, and remains active. He does a good job of just keeping, picking away at his opponent and not allowing them to break, get the referee to stand up, look for the stand-up. Now, he is very dogged on the takedown attempts. He is the type of guy who knows what his strengths are, he knows what his weaknesses are, and he will work hard for the takedowns. But in the process, it can slow him down, and he has had cardio issues in the past. He can also be a very effective fighter if he uses the clinch and pushes the opponent into the cage. When he fought Herman and when he fought Miller, he landed a lot of hard knees, short punches in the cage, held them on the wall, used his strengths, and that really takes away that distance striking. What Trevor Smith wants here is a very dirty, gritty fight. Attack the body with knees and punches, short uppercuts, just get inside and really make it ugly. Now, his chin, as I already mentioned, is questionable. He's been knocked out 4 times. Thales Leites took him out in the UFC, as did... my brain is shutting down on me at the moment. But he's been knocked out a couple times in the UFC. He hurt with the right hand with the latest. Miller actually hurt him a couple times with combinations and was having a lot of success early on with just being a faster striker. Smith tends to throw a lot of single strikes, a slow looping overhand right, low kicks that just seem to not have a lot of conviction behind them and not a lot of speed. And also, when he's striking, he tends to lean his chin forward and kind of dip his head out, and that results in getting cracked with a lot of counter strikes, and against Gigliotti, he's not going to want to take that type of power too often. I think Gigliotti should have no problem covering distance as against a slower fighter who throws a lot of single note strikes. I think he's going to test Smith's chin. Smith's going to want to close that gap, clinch, look for takedowns, and for Gigliotti, that's going to play into his need to get closer to land his strikes. For Gigliotti, he's going to try and maintain the appropriate distance for him, use counter strikes, use that lower stature to circle out of the clinch. It makes for harder level changes for Smith against a shorter opponent. That long layoff could lead to some ring rust and a bit of a slow start for Hot Sauce. And Smith tends to fade, so that doesn't really go together well. Where does he have his moments? For Gigliotti, look for him to use that hand speed to punish Smith at distance. And as he comes in, he will counter him. Smith's chin, has been exposed. When it's been exposed both because he's been knocked out multiple times and also because he leaves it exposed in the cage. He's vulnerable. I think Gigliotti catches him. My prediction is Joseph Gigliotti to defeat Trevor Smith by knockout. Up next, we have a very good fight, probably flying under the radar. It's in the UFC's welterweight division as Santiago Ponzinibbio, 23 wins and 3 losses, takes on Zach Cummings, 19 wins and 4 defeats. Both fighters have found solid success in the UFC, not really picking up solid wins, but not really grabbing anybody's attention. They're trying to break into the top 15. I can see the winner of this fight getting a shot at a guy who's 12, 13, all the way down to 15, and getting that opportunity to maybe crack the top 15 with a win here. Now, Ponzinibbio has won back-to-back fights, 4 of his last 5, 3 of those by knockout. For Cummings, he has won 2 in a row and 6 of his last 7, so solid runs for these two fighters. Both stand 6 feet tall, 2-inch reach advantage for the American. Ponzinibbio is 2 years younger, has had issues, and Cummings, though, has had some issues with weight cutting. I believe he has it under control. He's had a couple of fights now where he's had no problems, but he's fought as high as light heavyweight, I believe. So certainly he's down at welterweight where he seems more accustomed. But again, there's always that concern there, especially with the earlier weigh-ins. Now, for Zach Cummings, he is a BJJ brown belt, also comes from a wrestling background, 5 wins by knockout, 9-2 in fights ended by submission, 5-2 in the scorecards. For Santiago, he is a BJJ black belt, 13-2 in fights ended by knockout, 6-0 in submission based finishes, and 3-1 on the scorecards. For the American National Junior College wrestler, loves chokes, very good with the chokes. Against Nicholas Dalby, he really had a lot of success when he was able to get on top. He works very well from side control. Look for those, Darce chokes and working the arm triangle choke as well. Very strong upper body clinch. Really pushes opponents into the cage. Will look for land knees to wear them down. Short punches on the side. Just like we talked about Trevor Smith, he will look to dirty it up. But for all his perception as being a wrestler and a grinder, he's a pretty decent pocket striker. He likes to paw with that right hand, short lefts once he gets in. When he fought Gunnar Nelson, once he had Gunnar Nelson backing up, he fired those lefts on multiple occasions. He didn't throw a lot of offense in that fight, which is certainly concerning, but you saw when he got in his range, he wasn't afraid to let his hands go. He knocked out Dominique Steele along the wall with some very quick, nice, short, crisp striking in that fight. He'll throw a nice right jab. He sits down and strikes very well and fires those straight punches, and he has a solid left hand. I think I already mentioned that. He does need to feint a little bit more to open up those opportunities. When he fought Nicholas Dalby, he was having a little bit of trouble early on, but he rocked Dalby with a very hard uppercut and was throwing some straight left counters with great effectiveness. He's a veteran fighter. Cummings fights very calm and very calculated, conserves energy very effectively. He needs to pressure more. When I see he has a very good chin, and he should use that to help move in and pressure opponents, but he likes to sit back and counter, let them come to him, or he can land his counter strikes. I like to see him mix them up, use both of them. He did have some issues with the activity level of Nicholas Dalby, especially early on. He was getting hit with a lot of kicks. He was sitting back a little bit too much. He's not a big kicker himself to throw the odd one out there, but definitely relies on his hands a lot. He tends to move very straightforward behind his punches, again with his chin up at times, and again, he was having trouble against Nelson finding his range until he was able to get Nelson backed against the cage. Now for Ponzinibbio, and again I always butcher that name. He's a BJJ black belt. 55% takedown defense. He's given up 9. So he's been taken down multiple times, especially in his debut against Ryan LaFleur. He does a pretty good job of getting back up. If he can get underhooks, he can get back up, or he'll use his legs from guard to create some separation, which can be very effective as well. He is at his best when he pressures his opponents. Lots of movement. He's becoming more of a technical striker, relying less on just swinging wildly. Some more head movement has appeared in some of his more recent fights. He throws very long strikes, a hard right hand, left jab. He'll jab that body as well, then he'll come upstairs. He had a brutal right hand knockout of Andreas Stahl. He hurt Court McGee in the same fashion before putting him down. He tends to attack and burst with some inactivity at times. Throws very hard leg kicks, gets really low sometimes, and can really take out that base and really do some damage to his opponent's ankle. When he was fighting Sean Strickland, he was kind of forcing him to counter, and that really put Strickland in a defensive mode, which judges really like to see that guy who's moving forward and pressuring. But at the same time, if he's being overly aggressive and careless at times, that can open up opportunities for a guy like Zach Cummings to counter and hurt him. Santiago, at the same time, he doesn't like to be pressured himself. He likes to be the one doing the pressuring. If you push him, he's not nearly as effective. Against, in one of his last fights against Strickland, his output certainly dropped in round 2. His leg kicks disappeared. His chin's a bit of an issue. He's been knocked out twice, most recently by Lorenz Larkin, and he's very durable in the sense that he can recover, but he still gets dropped a lot. He's not easy to finish, but it's there where it can be a fight changer. He does also tend to hold his hands a little bit low at the end of his combinations where he can get countered. He overextends in some of his punches, and that can also open up the counters as well. As that he's durable but not unstoppable, and Cummings has the power that if he can catch him coming in, he certainly can change the fight or even knock him out. For Cummings, he has to counter, but he needs to push Ponzinibbio as well. Really find his way to mix up, when Ponzinibbio comes forward, land counter strikes, and then when it's Zach's turn to come forward, really push him back and focus his abilities on closing that distance and landing strikes. I want to see him do some clinch wrestling. I expect to see him establish his wrestling in this fight and spend some time on top. Now, Cummings has had some trouble with dynamic strikers. When Nelson showed him some new fronts, the volume of Dalby screwed him up a little bit at times, but I don't think Ponzinibbio will nearly as effective if Cummings starts coming forward, and once Zach establishes his counter game and his wrestling, look for some clinching from Cummings as well to wear down Santiago, take away some of that explosiveness and that speed that makes him effective. And I think this is one of those fights where Cummings just surprises some people, tires out Ponzinibbio, and my prediction is Zach Cummings to defeat Santiago Ponzinibbio by decision. Fight number 4 in the main card is in the UFC's middleweight divisions. The 12th ranked Thales Leites of Brazil, 25 wins and 6 losses, former middleweight title challenger. He will take on Chris Camozzi, the American, with a record of 24 wins and 10 defeats. Now, Leites is looking to rebound after back-to-back losses to Gegard Mousasi and Michael Bisping. That ended was a very solid run that got him back into the UFC, and he continued for quite a while. For Camozzi, he has won 3 in a row and 5 of 6, and he certainly would move into the top 15 with a victory here. So you've got one guy who's trying to rebuild momentum, another guy who's got some momentum and going forward. Physically, Camozzi 1 inch taller. Leites will have a 2 inch reach advantage, and the American is 5 years younger. Now for Camozzi, BJ brown belt, 7-0 in fights ended by knockout. He's very durable, never been knocked out before. 7-5 though in fights ended by submission, which is certainly a red flag against the type of fighter that he is fighting today. 10-5 in the scorecards. Leites, as I mentioned, very capable grappler, BJJ black belt, 4 wins by knockout, never been knocked out himself. 14-1 in fights ended by submission, the only submission loss coming against Matt Horowitz, which he avenged, tapping him out, and 7-5 on the scorecards. Now, Camozzi, he's known for his toughness, and he's known for just his gameness. He just wants to go out there and fight. He took 2 fights with Jacare Souza, both on short notice, and got submitted in both of them, and that just shows he's willing to go out and die on his sword or come back on his shield to get those fights and take that opportunity. The keys to his recent success has been his diversity. He's improved with his wrestling, his clinch fighting and his striking. They've all gotten better. We saw a lot more better striking and improved wrestling against Vitor Miranda in his last victory, which was a nice upset. And that's why he's become so effective. He is a southpaw, which can throw some fighters off. Throws a nice long right jab, doubles it up, kind of spears it out there, follows it with a straight left. Needs to use his reach, which can make him more effective. And he throws some nice hard inside leg kicks. There's not a lot of wind up. They're just boom, they're thudding. They will take away some of the movement of his opponent. When he finished Joe Riggs, brutal hard knees to take out Riggs. He used a lot of pressure against Vitor Miranda, and he knows when he gets an opportunity to go, he just goes and lets go with his hands, with whatever he's attacking with, and that's how he took out Riggs. When he fought Hoffel in Santiago, it's going back a little bit, a decision that I picked him to win, and he ultimately lost. He got cracked with some combinations from Natal in that fight. He tends to be a little bit vulnerable from the right side, and some fighters have had success there. He leads very heavy on his lead leg, yes, which can create openings for an opponent to chop him down, or at least take away some of his movement if they do target that. Some of the things going back to the Miranda fight, he had some nice leg sweeps where he was able to catch the foot and catch the kick and kick out Miranda's base leg and take him down. Got on top, held top position, rotated it back at one point, landed some very big elbows, busted him open, really broke him down. You could see the Brazilian spirit break based on Camozzi's top position offense. Now, on the other side of things, he's a 63% takedown defense, but he has been taken down a lot, 22 times in total inside the octagon, and he is 2-6 in his last 8 fights where he loses the takedown battle, and some of those fights are just one takedown to none, so it shows you how crucial his takedown defense and offense are to his success. When he fought Natal, he was taken down when punching, and Natal did a nice job changing levels. Against Bruno Santos, a fight that, again, one of those questionable fights that he lost, he made some poor decision choices when attacking and put him on the mat. And, he's decent at getting back up, but again, if you're giving up takedowns, that weighs with the judges, especially if those are one of the most significant aspects of the round. Now, for Thales Leites, he has also found success and rejuvenated his career because he's become more diverse, melding together his striking and his elite-level grappling in much better fashion. He does a very good job of pushing forward behind his strikes, getting into the clinch, and then looking for either clinch-based attacks or to get that fight on the mat. He'll punch his way into the clinch, he'll offer takedowns, looking for that body lock trip combination. His grappling game is world-class from top position, 14 wins by submission, as I mentioned above. He has tight top pressure, works his ground and pound in, he's constantly looking to pass, he has very solid and smooth transitions. And he's a very good scrambler as well. If you try and break away, he will look to scramble and turn that into a better position for him. Now, obviously, you see, just like Camozzi, the ground game and the takedowns tie into his success. In his last 2 losses against Mousasi and Bisping, he landed 1 of 14 takedown attempts. When Leites is striking, which it's become a much better aspect of his offense, he throws a nice left jab, he'll throw an overhand right behind it. He mixes in some nice chopping leg kicks, which coming out of Nova União, that's not surprising. He'll work in a right hook and swarm. When he took out Francis Carmont, he landed a couple rights and took him out. Also, when he knocked out Trevor Smith, landed the right hands along the cage that put him down. Now, he has his best success when he cuts his opponent off and unloads with his strikes. He also can be very effective if he can cut them off and they start firing. He can duck under and shoot for a takedown, drive them into the cage, and pull out their base, put them on their backside. He tends to attack in bursts at times, and you will have some prolonged periods of inactivity, which isn't exactly something you want to do, and Bisping was able to exploit that by pushing the pace when Leites was sitting back and looking to, build up to his next offense. He does leave his chin up a little bit when throwing combinations. He kind of leans back, though, which is good. He's not leaning forward into the strikes. He had some issues with the power and the pressure of Tim Boetsch getting cracked with some big shots. Eventually was able to get him down and finish him. As I said, both guys have added elements to their game, which has made them far more effective. Leites, though, will have the edge on the mat and in the clinch, which makes Camozzi one-dimensional. Camozzi, I'm not saying he has the edge in the striking, but I can't see him out grappling Thales Leites, and I can't see him getting the better of the clinch action, especially if Leites is able to transition that to the ground. I think Leites has to score early in case of a late slowdown because, Camozzi's not a cardio horse, but he's the type of guy who will keep fighting and keep pushing in the later rounds, and if it's close early, Camozzi could get the nod late with some hard, good, effective rounds. I think we'll see some time in the clinch with Leites where he's effective landing those strikes. He'll score takedowns. He'll have some success on the feet as well. And my prediction is eventually Thales Leites gets the fight to the mat, and he defeats Chris Camozzi by submission. We move now to the co-main event of the evening. It's in the UFC's featherweight division. The 8th-ranked Dennis the Menace Bermudez, 16-5-0, takes on Ultimate Fighter Brazil winner, returning Rony Jason with a record of 16 wins and 5 defeats. Now, Bermudez, he recently ended a 2-fight losing skid that ended his 7-fight winning streak that had him on the cusp of title contention. He was very close to that title shot. Now he has to rebuild that. He's coming off a pretty good win over a veteran in Tetsuya Kawajiri. For Jason, he tested positive for a banned substance. and has been out of the action for 15 months, including having his last win overturned. He has just one victory in his last 4 appearances. Physically, Rony Jason, 1 inch taller, a 4-inch reach advantage. Bermudez is the younger man by 2 years. Now for Dennis, NCAA Division I wrestler, 4-1 in fights ended by knockout, 3-4 in fights ended by submission. That's a red flag right there. 8-0 on the scorecards. Rony Jason, BJJ black belt, judo orange belt, 5-2 in knockouts, 8-1 in submissions, 1-2 on the scorecards. Now for Bermudez, what Dennis likes to do, he fights in close proximity. He can strike, he can clinch, he will change levels for takedowns, he will shoot from the outside and drive hard behind his opponent's hips, or into his opponent's hips to put them down. He throws some very hard chopping leg kicks, which can do a lot of damage. He has power in everything he throws. We saw him land some very good knees against Clay Guida. He blasted and just destroyed Jimmy Hedis. He knows how to finish. He knows how to turn it up and put guys away. He's a pocket striker. He can do very effective once he gets in the pocket and lands, uses some movement. He'll throw a nice left jab in close, but he tends to attack in straight lines, and that can open him up to getting countered. Also, when he fought Max Holloway in what was a travesty of a decision, he had some trouble getting in on the inside against Holloway and getting inside that reach. Even against Clay Guida, he was having trouble coming up short with some of his strikes before he was able to get in and eventually put him away. The other big thing is he gets hit a lot when he fought Ricardo, and he gets hurt a lot. When he fought Ricardo Lamas, he got dropped with a jab and immediately submitted via guillotine. Matt Grice hurt him early in that fight, and Bermudez had to storm back in a fantastic matchup. Jeremy Stevens hurt him a couple of times, eventually put him away. And the submission defense of Bermudez, he's been submitted 4 times. As I said, that's a big concern against a guy like Rony Jason. And now Bermudez, he tends to leave his chin out, and he overextends when he's attacking, which can open him up to getting countered. He got cracked with a couple of right hands from Clay Guida. He tends to hang his left hand a little bit low, which can open him up to those big shots. To avoid that, though, he can get on the inside and work the clinch game, work the wrestling. He just throws some very nice knees in the clinch, keeps pressure on with his chest, shoots with his, but at the same time he'll shoot and he can blow through guys and smash them and put them down with that power double. But he also tends to leave his head out a little bit. So we saw Steven Seiler attack his neck and nearly catch him. Rony Jason will be looking for something there. Explosive shots, I said, strong top position, ride and strike, and just wear guys out. He exhausted Tetsuya Kawajiri on the floor. Now for Rony Jason, he tends to be kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. He can be an explosive, dynamic, over-aggressive fighter, or he can be very reserved and almost like, this is not the same guy. We've seen both, and they've had mixed results, with those approaches. He throws a big overhand right. We saw him hurt Steven Seiler, kind of controversial, but I think just finish. He tends to throw a lot of rights, and they're kind of wide looping range. They can be effective. They can have power. Against Robbie Peralta, which was one of his most recent fights to go the distance, he lost it. He did break his left hand, I believe, so it kind of left him with only his right hand, but I think he's naturally inclined to throw a lot of right hands. He'll throw a right hook, as a little bit wide, left body kick, which can be very devastating. He can thump it in there. That's something I expect him to look for here. And he can throw it because he's not afraid to go to his back because he is so dangerous there. The big thing to watch for here is he'll throw a punch. If his opponent backs up, boom, he throws a flying knee. He'll jump right in there. It might not always land, but it's something to keep an eye on because if it does land, it can put an opponent down. And spinning back elbow, spinning back fist, all those type of stuff he will work in as well. Now, Rony Jason's signature is his BJJ, is his grappling game. He's exceptionally dangerous off his back. He likes to throw up his legs and look for triangles constantly. When he fought Jackson, he was able to catch him posturing up, and boom, legs went up, grabbed the arm. It worked both a triangle and an arm bar to eventually get the finish. He very effective with his judo clinch. He'll throw some nice trips. Against Robbie Peralta, he had success putting it down with a trip, and he immediately went for an arm. Peralta pulled out. We saw how quickly he can flash up those submission opportunities. Now, in that fight, he had some issues with Peralta pinning him on the cage, and Peralta almost seemed to lull him into a daze. It was kind of one of those situations where Peralta was able to control the action and not let Jason really get wound up, and that was kind of that controlled aspect of Rony Jason that really it wasn't effective. Peralta also had success sweeping Jason where Rony was on top, and it almost seems like he prefers to be on bottom. He's not nearly as comfortable from top position, and that's something, even against Damian Jackson landed some solid ground and pound from top position and had him in trouble before he eventually got caught with the submission. Bermudez, overall, he's the more technical fighter. He could outstrike Jason, or he could break him down on the mat or in the clinch, or it could be a mix of both. But Rony Jason certainly has the tools to hurt Bermudez and finish him, whether it be with his hands or knees or via submission. Those unorthodox attacks, the Brazilians are going to keep Dennis Bermudez off guard, and that height and reach advantage that Jason has could certainly create issues for Bermudez getting on the inside. I certainly think the layoff is going to be a concern for Rony. I'm also concerned about, if he's off whatever he was using before, whatever banned substance it was, if it affects his performance, that certainly could be an aspect here as well. Bermudez needs to be careful, but he should have the skills to wear out Jason on the cage, beat him up on the mat, get the better of the action on the feet, and my prediction is that it's Bermudez simply to wear out Honey Jason, and Bermudez takes this fight by decision. We move now to the main event of the evening. A main event that's been criticized by some people, but I'm certainly looking forward to it. It's in the featherweight division as well. The 13th ranked Yair El Pantera Rodriguez, 8 wins and 1 loss, takes on Bruce Leroy Alex Caceres, former member of Team George St. Pierre in The Ultimate Fighter. He comes in with a record of 12 wins, 8 losses, and 1 no contest. Now, Rodriguez, both fighters are getting this showcase opportunity, so certainly look for them to bring their best foot forward, if you will, coming into this fight. Rodriguez has 5 wins in a row, most impressively knocking out Andre Fili in his last performance. For Caceres, he has won 2 in a row, coming off a dominant performance against Cole Miller in a fight he took on a week's notice, or 6 days' notice. It was pretty darn impressive. Also, he had lost 3 fights prior to that at bantamweight. He came back up to featherweight, where he seemed much more comfortable over his last 2 fights. He also beat Macio Fullen, I believe was a fighter on Rodriguez's season of The Ultimate Fighter Latin America. The Mexican fighter Rodriguez, 1 inch taller. Caceres will have a 2 inch reach advantage. Yair, let's go with Yair, is 3 years younger, but a 13-fight gap in experience for the American. Certainly an advantage there. For Alex Caceres, 2-1 in fights ended by knockout, 5-5 in submissions, 5-2 in the scorecards. Rodriguez, 2-1 in fights ended by knockout, 1-0 in subs, 4-0 in the scorecards. Rodriguez, Taekwondo black belt. He has a wide variety of kicking skills, both flashy and functional, if you will, and he has obviously packs a lot more power than the numbers suggest, as we saw in the Andre Fili fight where he knocked him cold. He works well from the outside, and that's where he does his most effective work, if you will. Throws a lot of hard low kicks, which will remove his opponent's base, and then he goes flashy with spinning hook kicks. You know, that roundhouse kick, jumping roundhouse kick that took out Andre Fili was an absolute thing of beauty. Now, Rodriguez, lots of movement in his attack. He's a switch stance fighter, attacks from different angles, very quick, throws a lot of technique in a sequence. You know, when he fought Daniel Hooker, we saw him punch, throw a head kick, punch again, grab a leg for a single, move in for a hip toss. He just keeps melding things together until something is effective. Striking numbers, 3.2 strikes landed per minute compared to 1.95 strikes absorbed, so very effective there. He limited Hooker to just 19 strikes while landing 52 of his own. Similar just over a round of action against Andre Fili. He landed 25. Fili was limited to 11 strikes. Now, as far as opponents, what they need to do to be effective, they need to close that gap and jam him up. Take those kicks away by being aggressive and make it a dirty fight. Get in there, land short punches. Don't let him be flashy and effective in that manner. You know, but the same thing, we saw Rodriguez start showing off some wrestling. He took Fili down off a kick, landed some big ground and pound as well in that fight. He will look for submissions or to pass. Nice level change for takedowns as well as his opponent comes forward aggressively. Overall, his wrestling is improving. Now, on the flip side, his wild attacks leave him very open for opponents to grab positional advantage or even counter. We saw some situations where he went for some stuff, got put on the mat, or at least wound up in a position where opponent was able to scramble to a better scenario and found minimal success at the least. Against higher level opposition as he moves up the ladder, that is going to be something he needs to clean up. Now for Caceres, he's also an unorthodox striker. Lots of techniques. He looked very sharp against Cole Miller, probably the best we've ever seen him. He gets good extension on his punches and his kicks. He doesn't have one-punch knockout power. Damage by accumulation seems to be his thing, even though he rocked Cole, especially early in that fight. And he looked very fluid and relaxed in that matchup, which is very impressive considering how short of notice he took that fight on. He dropped Miller with a nice short left hand. He steps into that straight left very effectively. He'll throw head kicks, nice body kick, punch combinations. He'll work together. Now, he was having success in that fight when he was moving in. Lots of movement to get on the inside. He'll throw some spinning back kicks, back fists. When he gets on the inside, he's much more effective, even though he has some length. He's a below-average wrestler overall. He saw some better techniques and better success against Miller, but he's a very good scrambler, and he's an opportunistic grappler. If he gets the opportunity to submit you or to sweep you and get on top, he will take advantage of it. He can wear guys out with that method. He laid in some takedowns in that last fight against Miller, and he shucked off some of Miller's attempts to grapple, but again, he dazed Miller early in that fight, so we kind of thought maybe Cole was on autopilot for the duration of that matchup. Both fighters here are looking at their first 5-round fight. At the same time, that's a big deal. They do have a lot of experience in 3-round fights, but when you step into the cage and know you're going 5-round fights, 5-round, that could certainly change a fighter's either approach, or it could just certainly impact them if they don't make the adjustments. Big question is with Rodriguez is, can he maintain that explosive, high-risk output over the long duration of a 5-rounder if he's not able to get the finish? Or does he have to change up his approach, and is he as effective if he paces himself? Caceres showed better close-range striking in his last matchup, and we saw Andre Fili have success tagging Yair in close with short punches and backed him up a couple of times. And Fili was able to stand at range, and that effectively worked for Rodriguez. But Fili, when he did move in, he had success. Look for Rodriguez. He should have a power advantage in this fight. Overall, the technical advantage as far as flashy technique goes to him. I would give the functional advantage as far as technique to Alex Caceres. I think Caceres is going to find success closing that gap. He's going to clinch up, push Yair Rodriguez into the cage. He's going to grapple with him. He's going to land some of those short punches. I think Alex Bruce Leroy holds his own early. Takes advantage of some mistakes to get some superior positions, drags Rodriguez into the later rounds where he wears him out, slows him down, and my prediction is Alex Caceres to defeat Yair Rodriguez by upset. I'll take Caceres by submission. So those are our 6 main card predictions for the upcoming UFC Fight Night 92 event. As I said, all of my preliminary predictions will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. We've got I think we get a break after this, which I'm very excited about. I'm going to keep this short because it's incredibly late where I am right now. So, as always, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check everything out. Consider buying the bet packs. Contact me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. All those fun things. And take care, guys. I'll see you right back here in a short period of time.